It's taking its time. Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon from any part of the world you're joining us today or watching us on YouTube. This is the Renewing the African Mindset. It's a discussion program for the benefit of the people who are joining us for the very first time. Renewing African Mindset, otherwise known as RAM, is actually a platform where we talk about topical issues which affect which affect us in a way, and more importantly, issues that we hardly talk about in the open due to cultural beliefs, traditional values or experiences, exposure, and at times it could be due to ignorance. And then we also have the culture of silence where we shy away from things which we should be talking about. And in the process, it affects a lot of people, especially when we're talking about health issues. People keep things private to themselves and they suffer in silence. So today we're going to talk about depression. Depression can affect anyone at any point in time, whether you're a man or a woman, young person or an adult. It has no respect for gender, no respect for ethnicity, um, social status, or financial status. We're focusing on men today because people usually associate depression with women. And so some men suffer in silence. So today we're going to be talking about depression in men. We have professionals here with us today, a family physician, consultant psychiatrist, a counselor. We also have two people who will be sharing their personal experiences of depression with us. A gentleman who is a pastor, he will share his personal experience of depression. And then we have a woman who is married to a man who has been going through this condition for a while. We're going to find out from her the impact on the family. And then we have two media gurus. They will be telling us how they can change the narrative with regards to mental health issues, especially depression. How do we destigmatize depression? Because usually part of the problems we have in Africa is stigmatization of mental health illness. So we're just going to go straight to ask the consultant here what depression is. The consultant is Dr. Abimbola Fadipe. She is also a deputy medical director with Oxley's NHS Trust in Southeast London. She has over 18 years experience of working with people with mental health problems in different areas in London and the Southeast. She has a wide experience in the field of research and obtained a master's degree in psychiatric research from the University College London. Dr. Fadipe has extensive experience in clinical leadership and medical management. As a clinical director for 6 years, Dr. Fadipe spearheaded various local and national change programs on quality improvement projects. She has a keen interest in coaching and mentoring. She's currently designing a leadership program to support consultant psychiatrists in the first 5 years of their careers. Welcome, Dr. Fadipe.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me. Can I just check? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Already, this is year 2020, a year we will never forget in our lifetime. So in a way, the COVID situation has exacerbated a lot of problems for people. And there has been an increase in depression, according to some statistics. But everybody just used the word loosely, depression. What exactly is depression? How would you define depression?
Well, the first thing I would like to say is that depression is an illness. It's not a character. It's not a character. It's not a flaw of your character. Neither is it something that you can control. So the way depression is defined, if you define it by its symptoms, it has three core groups of symptoms. So one of the first group of symptoms is mood. So your mood is low, and this is not just sadness. This is feeling low every single day or most days for a period of 2 weeks. And in addition to feeling low, you feel guilty, you feel hopeless, you feel helpless, you find it difficult to do anything, and you've got a lot of negative thoughts. You may think that you're not worthy, you may feel guilty about a minor misdemeanor. Then you've also got what's known as the cognitive, which is the kind of thought process. So people find it difficult to concentrate, they find their mind wandering, they're indecisive, they can't make any decisions. And then the third group of symptoms are known as biological symptoms, and that is they have difficulty sleeping, there are problems with their appetite, they may lose weight, they may lose interest in anything they're doing or not gain pleasure from anything they're doing. They may be slow, they may be feeling tired all the time. And when it gets to the more severe end, people have thoughts of harming themselves, and some people do harm themselves. And some people, unfortunately, end their lives in the context of depression.
Mm-hmm. So, what's a clinical depression? I mean, the thing is, we have diverse group of people here who are non medical professionals. What's
Yeah.
clinical depression?
So clinical depression is if you have those symptoms that I described for a
Right.
period of 2 weeks, every day for the period of 2 weeks. And depression in England, we define depression as being mild, moderate, or severe. In America, they use major depression, which is equivalent to our moderate or severe depression. So if you've had those symptoms persistently for 2 weeks, that is what we would define as clinical depression.
Mhm. You mentioned some of the symptoms. What about anger? Unnecessary outburst. Would you consider that as a symptom?
You can have irritability, you can feel irritable, and whether that manifests in you being angry, and you can also feel anxious. So, anxiety can be part of your symptoms, and anxiety can make you lash out or feel irritable towards someone. In this context, we're talking about something known as unipolar depression, which is just depression. There is bipolar depression, which means that you have another set of mood symptoms where you can become very angry, become hyperactive. But in this context, I'm talking about what medically is known as unipolar depression.
Hmm. Right. Um, According to the suicidology organization, and I also checked this website called Black Doctor, it says men are 4 times likely to die by suicide, and 7 to 8 Black men die daily from death by suicide. Why would men commit suicide and not women? We hardly find, or we hardly read reports on that.
I suppose suicide is an interesting concept and a difficult concept to understand. People do take their lives in the context of being depressed or having a
Mhm.
depressive illness. So there are various factors that can contribute towards someone wanting to end their life. And can I just say, we need to change the language around suicide. Sort
Mhm.
of committing suicide is it's not a crime. So people die by suicide. They don't commit suicide. So it's you die by suicide or somebody has died as a result of suicide rather than saying commits, because commit sort of makes it a crime, which it is not. So and you are right, it is commoner amongst men and it is commoner amongst Black men. And in the, there's studies that are done every year in England which shows the suicide rates among the different age groups. It's highest amongst the 18 to 35, and it's rapidly rising amongst the middle age, which is the 45 to 59 age group.
Mhm.
And there are various reasons for that.
Uh, One of the areas which people hardly talk about with regards to um, the causes of depression, they talk about the low self-esteem. At times we do have low self-esteem. When do you actually think this is just not an ordinary feeling of low self-esteem or perpetual regret? I mean, we all have regrets that, oh my goodness, I wish I'd gone to this so and so university, or I wish I'd done this, I wish I'd done that. Um, What's the yardstick you use in terms of saying this is not normal?
So the things that you're describing are people being sad or having regrets about what happens in their life, but those are very periodic and episodic. Somebody who has depression will have those thoughts constantly to the detriment of everything else they're doing. So they won't be able to concentrate, they won't be able to work, they won't be able to interact with people. And because of those thoughts, they may start to isolate themselves. So that's when it crosses the line for being just sad or having a reaction to a situation in which you find yourself. That's when it turns into the illness, and that's what we would be looking at.
Okay. Some of the causes, it's meant to be, maybe lack of unemployment. Oh, sorry, due to unemployment, which has happened during this COVID period, maybe a divorce, maybe separation. But it's a long list. I'm sure the counselor would also tell us some, as well as Dr. Duroja, if, the areas that we've missed. But from people who have been talking to me, because the reason why I did this is because I've been speaking with different people, usually men, and these are married men. You begin to wonder what's going on. Some of them are struggling with sexual identity. Would you say that's a strong cause of depression? We don't usually talk about that in the open because of the African mindset.
Well, we don't talk about. Let me take your questions. Let me break it down. So, in terms of what causes depression, there are various things that cause depression. It's multifactorial. There are many causes. You can have a family history of depression. So for some people, there's a genetic component to it. So
Okay.
if somebody in your family has depression, there is a likelihood that you could have it. There could be a physical illness that could be causing your depression, making you feel tired. Things like underactive thyroids can cause depression. Anemia, which is low red blood cell count, can make you feel tired, which may mimic depression. In addition to that, any kind of life event, which is what you've described, divorce, losing your job, or any kind of thing, can then exacerbate or precipitate or trigger the depression. So we all have, it's human nature to feel sad or to have a reaction to any kind of adverse event. It's
Mhm,
when that becomes persistent and
mhm,
perpetuates. And in some instances, things that we don't talk about in Africa, which can cause depression, are adverse childhood events. So things that have happened to you in your childhood, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse. Those are the things we do not talk about that can present with depression in adolescence or later life.
mhm. And another area which people often tend to miss is stress at work. I mean, somebody is going to work around about 6 o'clock and then they come home very late, even though maybe the official hours is between 9 till 6 or whatever. I'm not even talking about a doctor now. And they just want to be away from home. And then you begin to wonder, this person is married with children. If anything, you would really want to stay with your family, but the person would prefer to be far away from home. Would you say that's a sign of depression, which
I
usually at
think that's
times the
very
wife will not
difficult
pick
to
up on?
attribute. I think that's very difficult to attribute to depression. I don't know why somebody would be avoiding their home situation. There may be things that they find stressful there, and it may be a kind of contributing factor. But I wouldn't say that is depression. People can isolate themselves from their friends and family when they're feeling depressed. That is part of it. The kind of
Mhm.
social isolation, not wanting to meet with people, can be a sign of depression. Yes.
Mhm. Then another factor within the African concept, so to speak, the culture, some people say that the cause of depression for them is extended family interference, where the husband is now caught in between situation between his wife and his family.
I suppose in the African context, that is a life event. So
Mhm.
that is a stressful life event. So that can precipitate or trigger a depression, especially in the Nigerian context where extended family, even your friends, feel that they have a right to be in your life, and they say things to you and they do things to you that in your cultural context you cannot respond to, or
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't respond to due to the kind of cultural context. So I would put that as more of a trigger and something that would make the depression worse rather than actually being a cause.
Right. Then what about a situation? Forgive me here. I'm creating scenarios of
Yeah, that's
real
fine.
life situations people have discussed with
I,
me.
I, I see
So,
this
and
on a
this is
daily
the way
basis,
RAM
so I
works.
understand
Yeah.
where you're coming
What
from.
about somebody who is actually sexually repressed in the sense that the person is married and the person is actually sexually repressed? And a man can't just be seen out there talking that, guess what, this is what's going on in my home. If it's a woman, even though we mask everything with makeup and whatever, we still have somebody that we talk to one way or the other. But with men, you're out there, mixing in, with the high and mighty Rolex, or, on the wrist and things like that. But this person is actually dying inside. Would you say being sexually repressed could also be a cause for depression?
I suppose there are two ways to answer that question. If you're having problems with your sexual drive or libido, that
Right,
can be a symptom of depression. If
right.
it's something else that's causing it and you feel unable to talk about it,
Mhm.
then that is an adverse event for you. And because you're not talking about it, that can lead to depression. So
Okay,
there's something about the African culture in that we're very secretive about any kind of signs or symptoms. We don't talk about them,
right.
especially men.
Mhm.
And because we don't talk about them, you don't know whether anyone will be able to help you or whether people are in a similar situation to you. So sexual sexual regression can be an adverse event and then can lead to people developing a depressive illness. But
Mhm.
a low sexual drive, reduced sexual libido is a symptom of depression.
Mhm. Right. Um, I've heard the term living in a black hole. What does that mean?
So the people that have depression describe this feeling of hopelessness and guilt. So it is like a black hole. They can see no light. Can you imagine if you're perpetually sad and you feel your mood is very low? There's nothing that you enjoy. You don't smile. You
Mhm.
and I are talking, and we've got you can see the reaction on our face. You can see that we're interacting. Somebody who has depression will just have this blank look.
Mhm.
They cannot interact, they can't react to anything. So that's what they say by feeling as if they're in a black hole or there's a black cloud over them.
Okay. Now, how can you approach someone who is in denial of being depressed, particularly when they keep quiet? And look, the thing is, I'm talking to my friend X, and I'm saying, I think you need to see someone. But you are there. You know that person is going through that phase, but you keep quiet. The culture of silence, the typical African culture, you keep quiet and you talking about it. You now sound or seem like a nasty person. So, how would you be able to approach somebody who is in denial? Or if
I,
the person begins to exhibit symptoms of depression and you know that there is something going on here that's not quite right.
I
For
suppose
example,
it would
symptoms of transferred aggression.
I suppose it depends on the level of severity. If someone doesn't want to do something, you can't
Yeah.
force them. So you have to find a way of talking to them and seeing what stage they're in.
Yes.
There's something known as a cycle of change.
Right.
So in the cycle of change, people go through different cycles. So if
Right.
you're still at the denial phase, all the person can do is try and be supportive and sort of say, I've noticed this, what do you think? But we don't do that as Africans. We feel that we can run people's lives. So
Yeah.
you'd be telling the person, you need to go and see a doctor. I told you there's something wrong with you. That is definitely not the way to approach it. You need to be supportive and sort of say, how are you feeling? Do you think this could help? Do you think? And then they start to shift. It may take a while. I think the only time that you would need to get urgent help is if you're worried for their life. that is when you will need to do something drastic. But if it's still something that is amenable, you need to start with a supportive
Yeah.
kind of front, first of all, and sort of say, I've noticed this, I've noticed that, what do you think? And then see the response you get and then build on that. Definitely don't go down the route of there's something wrong with you, you need to go and see a doctor.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Quite informative. I'll just hold it right there. We'll talk about the treatments later. I'll move on to the family physician. Usually, before we get referred to a psychiatrist, is the family doctor we go and to see. Um, the next person on the panel that's going to share a bit of information with us is Dr. Oluwagbemiga Durojaye. He's a family physician, geriatrician domiciled in Lagos, Nigeria. He had his residency training at the Lagos State University Teaching Hospital, otherwise known as LASUS, where he won the Staff of the Year award for family medicine and the Chief Medical Director's Commendation Award. He has vast working experience in both private and public health institutions and at all levels of care. Dr. Durojaye is a member of the Society of Family Physicians of Nigeria, a member of the Nigerian Institute of Management, a fellow of the West African College of Physicians. He holds a certificate in health leadership and management from the University of Washington, USA. His areas of interest are mood, anxiety disorders, clinical psychology, cardiometabolic medicine, health education, and communication. His research works include the relationship between cardiovascular risk factors and depression among adults attending the family medicine clinic of LASO. Welcome, Dr. Durojaye.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being with us. Uh, in your experience as a family physician, do you think men are open about their personal problems when they approach you?
I would say not at all. I must commend Dr. Fadikbe for the excellent presentation thus far. And depression is common, though common, but most of the time as family physicians or primary care physicians, we are usually not on the lookout for it. Most men will never come to you to say that, oh, I feel I'm depressed or I feel I'm anxious. Most of them will come with what we call somatic symptoms. We found out that most Africans, they don't believe that emotional problems could be a mental health issue. So most of them will come with maybe chronic pain. I'm having this pain in one part of the body, is moving from one place to another, especially in the abdominal region, abdominal pain. Some of them could also come with history of ulcers. Some of them could come with history of poor sleep, which is very, very common. Most of them would not come out to say I'm depressed. They will just tell you, I have one pain or one discomfort here or the other. So what I usually do, or what we should do as primary care physicians,
Yeah.
is to administer what we call the patient health questionnaire. It's called a PHQ-9 questionnaire. It's useful to detect depression in primary care. And because most men will not admit, like you said, they will be in denial that they have depression until those questions are actually asked. The questionnaire has about 9 questions, and then it says in the past 2 weeks, have you experienced any of these? Difficulty concentrating, difficulty falling asleep or waking up from sleep, lots of interest in things you like doing before, feeling sad for most part of the day, and then thinking of being better or being dead or committing suicide and all of that. So with that, by the time they answer or attempt those questions, based on their score, because the score is between 1 to 27, and depending on the severity, then you can begin to discuss the issue of this depression with them. I actually have a patient. Another thing to look out for is what we call the tick file syndrome. In those days when we weren't using electronic health records, such people will have a very thick case file because they keep coming to the hospital after the first visit, they keep coming, again and again with different complaints. And I also try to tell them, like Dr. Fadipe has discussed, that Depression or mood disorders are diagnoses of exclusion, meaning that you should have ruled out possible medical causes before you zone or cone down on depression, apart from administering the PHQ-9 questionnaire. So if you want to rule out maybe thyroid dysfunction, like hypothyroidism, like Dr. Fadipe has said, or if they have a low blood level or low blood sugar levels, they could actually feel so weak, tired, they could have low energy and low mood and all of that. So most of the time, they will not hone up that they have a depression, but you have to be on the lookout for it and then be able to rule that out after you have excluded all possible medical causes.
Why do you think it's very difficult for them to talk about what they're going through? Is it a macho thing, or I mean, you're a man anyway, so what do you think?
Well, actually, there are a lot of factors that affect it. First of all is the masculinity, the
Right.
machoism, like you've described. Even some of us in raising our children, you tell the male, don't cry, men don't cry, you shouldn't express yourselves. Whereas men are human beings too, and they have emotions, they have feelings, and that need to be attended to. So most men, while being raised, they've been told, as a man, you don't feel pain, you can never, have any emotional issues, you should be strong and be there for your family. So that's a major issue. And then because also most men actually don't interact much with the hospital, unlike the women, when they get pregnant and they have deliveries, so they are used to coming to the hospital, they are used to opening up about whatever they are feeling. Unlike men who most will not come to the hospital until the condition is advanced or really serious. So that's it.
Okay. The next question I have for you is how would you be able to differentiate if a patient is suffering from stress as opposed to depression?
Okay. Well, like Dr. Fadipe had earlier highlighted, for you to make a diagnosis of depression, those core symptoms must have existed for at least 2 weeks or more. So you ask them, do you experience low mood? Do you
Mhm.
experience low energy, or you feel so tired anytime you wake up? And then are you experiencing maybe loss of appetite? Are you experiencing loss of interest in things that you enjoyed, pleasure doing before? So you ask all those core symptoms and core questions, which is a bit different from stress. If it's stress, like Dr. Fadipo had highlighted, it's episodic. It's usually probably wouldn't last up to 2 weeks,
Mhm.
or more. So those are the ways you differentiate between stress, and then it must be significant enough to affect your social function,
Okay.
like she said. So if it's affecting your quality of life, your social function,
Mhm.
your interaction with others, you are isolating yourself, there's self-neglect. Those are things we look out for in primary care, actually,
Okay.
because even women too, some women will not come out to tell you that they have depression. But when you see that this person, she comes to you dressed in dark colored clothes, she's not had her makeup on, she's not even interested in how her hair looks and all of that. So those are things you look out for to help you detect that this person could be depressed.
Okay. You know, you being the first point of call, the thing is, how would you know the type of referral you should make? Because with us Africans, the moment we hear psycho, we don't even want to know whether it's a psychologist or a psychotherapist or a psychiatrist or whatever. The first thing that comes to their mind is, oh my goodness, a naked person walking around the street. So, how would you know whether you need to refer this patient to a counselor, psychotherapist, psychologist, or a psychiatrist?
So knowing who to refer to and when to refer will
Yeah.
depend on the severity.
Right.
Um, like if I use the PHQ-9 score, like I was discussing,
Mm.
if they score between 5 to 9, that is just mild depression. Then
Right.
from 10 to 14 is major depression with mild severity.
Mm.
Then 15 to 19 is major depression with moderate severity. And then 20 upwards is major depression severe with severity. And so because of that, depending on their score, It will
Right.
determine who you refer to. So
Mm.
for somebody who still has maybe mild depression, it's
Mhm.
somebody that can still be managed in primary care. So
Mhm.
you try to talk to them, counsel them, and then whatever it is, if you could identify the stressor or the trigger or the life event, you could help them to find a way around it, in overcoming that challenge. And so you talk to them. And then if it comes to major depression with mild severity, you may want to use some antidepressants, at that point in time. So, if a patient presents with severe depression, and there are some symptoms that qualifies as severe depression, irrespective of the presence or absence of other symptoms. For example, somebody that has suicidal ideations or
Mm.
suicidal attempt,
Mm.
definitely you have to refer to a psychiatrist and not just a psychologist,
Mm.
because the person will need a combination of both psychotherapy that the psychologist will offer, and then chemotherapy or medications that the psychiatrist will also offer. So if the person has suicidal ideations or thoughts or attempts, if the person had been treated earlier on with an antidepressant and there's failure, then you have to refer to a psychiatrist. If the person has psychotic symptoms are majorly delusions and hallucinations. If a person has that, then you have to manage. You can't manage that person at primary care level. Then if the person also has severe self-neglect,
Mm.
to the point that probably they've not been eating, they've been anorexic, and then they've lost more than 5% of their body weight, then you need to refer to a psychiatrist, because the person might require some admission, and then both psychotherapy and then psychiatrist care.
Thank you for that. I've heard of the expression smiling depression. What does that mean?
Smiling depression. Well, some people try to mask their depression, and then so because of that, they attempt to smile to cover up. Then at the same time, there is an anxiety component of depression. Like Dr. Fadipe said, what we're talking about basically is unipolar depression. So some could swing between the two, especially in bipolar conditions or bipolar disorders, where they switch between mania and depression. So at one point in time, they're excited, there's lots of social inhibition, they're smiling all over the place, talking, dancing, singing. And then in the next minute, they switch to the other side of the pole, which is major depression. And then, they are depressed and all of that. So somebody with smiling depression could have that, or could make an attempt, especially for men who try to numb their emotional symptoms or emotional feelings. They could have what you've described as smiling depression.
Okay. Religion plays a vital role in the African culture. How would you convince a patient it needs to be referred to a psychiatrist? I come to see you, and well, imagine I'm a man and I come to see you, and you're telling me you need to see a psychiatrist, and I say to you, it's not my portion. And you clearly know that no, it's not your portion, but you definitely need to see a psychiatrist. How would you be able to convince me?
Okay, well, to start with, I try to establish a rapport with the client. And
Right.
once you have believability, they believe in you. And then I help them. It's what we call patient-centered care. So you try to, along with them, arrive at a diagnosis. It's not paternalistic care. You're not telling them this is what you have, like she said in the African setting, and you must do this, you must see this person, and all of that. You try to carry them along, look at the symptoms, listen to them very well, and then be able to explain and marry all the symptoms together and convince them. For some, they are in denial. So like I said, I just administered the PHQ-9 questionnaire. I just asked them, please just help me to fill these 9 questions. You just answer them in a few minutes. By the time they are done, then I highlight their score, and then I begin to analyze that based on your score, this is what you have. So what I try to do is to make them realize that science is not evil. Science is not bad. And then when we talk about spirituality in medicine, we know it's very important. spirituality plays a major role in healing and recuperation. And then for those who are faced with challenges, health challenges, those who are more spiritual, they tend to be able to cope better. So one will bring in all of these things, but I just try to convince them that you need the assistance while we are praying along, while we know that it's not your portion. It is still advisable that you see, and I try to make them realize that not every psychiatric case, has psychosis. The frank mad person that we refer to is somebody most of the time with psychosis. And so, but there are other mental illnesses, there are other mental disorders that are not necessarily a manifestation in quote of madness. So I just try to explain to them and tell them you can pray along while you see the psychiatrist.
Okay. If the family member of someone suffering from a suspected depressive condition approaches you privately, how would you deal with the situation? I'm the
I've been
wife
up,
of somebody going through it, and I approach you. How would you deal with the situation?
well, the first thing I would like to do, I've been approached a number of times like that. And some even tell you the person might be my patient primarily, but tells me that the source of this problem is actually either my spouse or a family member. And so, what I try to do is, first of all, you have to obtain permission from them. What will you like me to do? To what extent do you want me to intervene? Some will tell you, I'm just telling you for you to know. Some will tell you, okay, I would like you to speak to him. Can you help me speak to him? And so in most instances like that, I get their contacts and I call them. At times, I might invite the person to come to the hospital and say, okay, at your next appointment, please tell him or her to accompany you to the hospital. And when they come around, I can now excuse the person who informed me about it and then try to talk to the person, not directly making them realize that the person had reported them to me, but I can just say, oh, what I've seen, maybe your spouse, who is my client, and I think apart from medical issues, there are some other psychosocial issues that could be contributing to the condition she has. And then by that, I gain access to them. I'm able to, hear from them and hear them out. And so once I can establish that relationship with the person, then we can take it up from there.
Thank you so much for that. My final question for now is, does your involvement with the patient stop after a referral to a psychiatrist?
No, it doesn't. And that is why, as family physicians, we say we take care of you from the cradle to the grave and even beyond the grave. Because when your family is bereaved and they are still in the grief period, as a family physician, you can still relate with the family and then to help them go through the grief period. And so we don't stop. We refer for intervention. Ideally, after the intervention has been implemented, the patient or the client should be referred back to the family physician who continues to manage. And if there's any need for any intervention at any other point in time, then you can refer back again to the specialist. So we don't stop there. In fact, most of them prefer to still come to see you, from time to time. So we continue with that relationship. And because as a family physician, you know almost every part of their lives. And then we take into consideration psychosocial factors that could cause illnesses or diseases.
Okay. Thank you so much for such insightful contribution, Dr. Durojai. Very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Now, we say depression is real. Some people have an idea that indeed it is real. But then again, when you hear from somebody who has been through it and who can come out in the open to talk about it, it's something else. It drives home, to us that it is indeed real. And this next person that's going to share his personal experience with us, it's an unusual thing for an African man to come out to share the experience. Not only that, is also a pastor. Not only that, from the part of the world where we come, somebody talking like that about, exposing themselves, their vulnerability, so to speak. The only reason why he'll be doing it is to encourage other people who are going through depression. So, this next person I'm going to introduce to briefly share with us his experience of depression. His name is Pastor Lawrence Oji, otherwise known as Pastor Solution. You soon find out why he's called Pastor Solution. He's the church evangelist uh, for New Covenant Church. No, he's actually a pastor there, and he's also an evangelist of New Covenant Church in London. He's a founder and coordinator of Solution for to Alcohol and Drug Addiction Initiatives, which is a community project that helps drug addicts, alcoholics, prisoners, and ex offenders to rediscover their potentials and lead a purposeful life. His passion for drug addicts and prison is as a result of where he is coming from as an ex drug addict and jailbird. He is the author of the bestseller called From Prison to Pulpit, and other books such as Soul Winning Simple, Not Without a Scar, and the recent publication of his book, which is called Depression, The Silent Killer, which focuses mainly on his battle with depression. Welcome, Pastor Solution.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for inviting all these experts. Because even though I went through depression for many years, there are things I went through that I didn't even know their names or how they are defined. But I'm hearing from the experts now. Yeah, the depression is real. But one thing I know from what the doctors have said so far is that whether it's mild or whether it's chronic or depression is depression. Depression is something that removes joy in a man's life. Like myself, for several years, all that people knew was that I didn't have any future. I was only living on drugs and prison and all. But what they didn't know is that what kept me on drugs for that long time. I mean, when I say drugs, heroin, cocaine, crack, and all those things, because I was trying to mask the pain. I was trying to numb the pain I was going through. It started like a joke, but when I saw that my friends, with whom I left school the same time, we left school in 1973, and by the time you knew it, even though I was the youngest inspector of police in the history of Nigeria Police Force, worked in bank and insurance, but I began to use drugs so much so that I began to lose, consciousness of time. Before I knew it, my friends and my mates had gone ahead. Some had graduated and started having families. I realized that the gap was so much, and I began to live in regret, feel a sense of guilt. The pride I brought to my family when I was the youngest inspector of police of Nigeria Police Force, and up till now, nobody has beat that record. I was Gambo Sudley when he was Commissioner of Police, Lagos State, and all of a sudden, I saw myself living in drug joints. There was no way I thought I could ever catch up with life again. So I was always in drugs. Every time I was thinking about the next fix, until it got to the time that I believed that the only solution I had was just to terminate my life. But many people who saw me didn't even realize I was depressed. I, I knew I was a sad person, but people gave me the name solution to people's problem. If you needed drugs, you'll be advised to meet me, because I never ever ran out of drugs. Never. I used to have drugs to the point that whenever I was traveling, anywhere, any part of the world, I had drugs. Whenever I was being taken to court, I knew I would end up in prison. I had drugs. So all I lived for was drugs. I was not thinking about any other thing in my life except I had drugs. So, and of course, if you met me, you had drugs. But when I saw that I had lost a lot of time, for instance, I'm closer to 70 than to 65 now. But my first child is still 11, when my younger ones are grandparents. So by the time you look at it, I'm just talking of my own immediate family, my younger ones. Some of them are grandparents, where I can only say thanks be to God that even today I have a family. There was a time I never thought of, having a family, getting married, having children. Those things never featured in my, because I believe that I had lost time, and the only way I thought I could catch up with time was to kill myself, so that people would say, if he had been alive, maybe he would have done this, he would have done that. So, but I know that I tried many ways to kill myself. I did through knifing myself, cutting my stomach, and the intestines come out. Had different types of medicine, up to 80 different tablets at a time. I wanted to die so that people would just say he died. I tried through accidents. I had more than 5 serious accidents, deliberately. I'll just hear a voice that said, it is better you die. What life are you living? And I believed that voice. I'll close my eyes on expressway, especially overseas, good roads, close my eyes and speed, and the car will crash. Miraculously, I'll just come out of the accident. So depression for me is real, even though I didn't know that the word then was depression. Of course, in Italy, where I went to prison a lot, I went to prison in many countries, and I keep on saying, thank God I didn't go to prison in Nigeria. Maybe I wouldn't even be here to tell my story. So, but each prison I went to had doctors, had psychiatrists, had psychologists, had everything of such. They visited me, but each time any of them was talking to me, of course, most times you fill the form, a request to see them, just to come out from your cell momentarily, to go to the infirmary, and just to leave the cell. Not that I was interested in what they were saying to me, because inside me I was a very sad person, but outwardly people didn't know I was a sad person, But
So
what I'm
how
saying,
long, if I may ask Pastor
yeah,
Solution, how long did it take for this, whilst you were in the wilderness or the black hole, so to speak? How long did it take? Can you recall?
well, I started using hard drugs for a very long time, in Nigeria, and it's unfortunate, but that's the truth. Even from the police college, we will arrest people outside for using drugs, but hardly, in fact, 80% of people in police college and policemen use drugs. So I started using drugs even when I was in secondary school. But when I now left school and joined the police, and of course the bank and all, until I lost my job due to drugs, I used to sing with Fela Kuti. He was a very good friend of mine. By the time I realized it, from 1980, the prison visit started. And it didn't stop until 2002, when I left prison finally. So from 1980 to 2002, when I left prison finally, except now that I go to prisons to minister, I was always prepared to go back to prison. My life was in and out of prison, to the point that each time I left prison, the prison warders would say, "Solution till when?" They knew I will always come back. And me, even though they saw it as fun, that he will come back, I never stayed over 3 months outside, as a free person. So I was always prepared, had drugs in my stomach, because I knew I could be arrested anytime. But I knew that that wasn't life. I knew, but I could not help myself. So the fact that, and people saw me as a very intelligent person, the fact that they saw me as a very intelligent person and I saw myself already as a failure, meant that the depression was always very tough. And that is why I say to people, we should not condemn anybody we see in such, like the Dr. Oluwabemiga was saying, and Dr. Fadikwe, they need help, and not condemnation.
Okay.
And
Let me ask you another question. Being an African man, do you think you might, at that point in time, were you thinking of stigmatization as a result of your past?
actually, in fact, why I tried to kill myself through accident was that I didn't want people to know it was suicide because of the stigmatization. They will say, in that family, the son committed suicide. So I was trying to do it through accident so that people would just think it was an accident rather than I died through suicide. Like Dr. Fadik said, it's not that he committed suicide because that would make it look like a crime. I never knew that. I've always said he tried to commit suicide. Now, I did everything I could to die through accident so that people will not know it was an act of suicide.
Yeah, because in the African culture,
Yes,
it's perceived as as a taboo subject or some sort of
absolutely.
thing that, oh my goodness, this
The
person
stigma.
killed themselves. Yeah, is a stigma on the family, on the person as well. Now let's move on to the book. You have written a book on depression called Depression, the Silent Killer. Why did you refer to it as such?
Yeah. Why? In fact, when we had this lockdown in March, and
Right.
I discovered that most of the news, in fact, up till now, hardly a day will pass without you hearing news about how many people have died through COVID
Yeah.
and all that. I realized that many people died through the depression, or many people are going through the depression, but many didn't even realize they were going through it. So in Italy, it's called il mal oscuro, the hidden sickness. People will see you and not know that you're sick, but inside you, you knew you are not well. So that's why I titled it The Silent Killer. I know we have doctors here who will do everything. And of course, from the way these two doctors have spoken, I know that they have spoken out of passion. But there are some doctors also who, of course, we've seen on Facebook and other social media, who just do it because they want to do work and get their money. But there are some who do it as a ministry to make sure that the person gets well. So I've seen a lot of doctors in my life to the point that in Italy, when I was in prison, I had to write Dr. Alfredo Biondi. He was the Minister of Justice. I wrote a letter against the doctors in my prison because I felt that they were just using me to make money rather than doing anything to make me get better. I was dying silently, but people thought I was living. Because I used to play good football when I was younger. I had the nickname of Asprilla in prison. Asprilla is the Colombian footballer who played with Parma, the first person to score a goal against Milan after 929 minutes. They didn't consider a goal. So they were calling me Asprilla. But even at that, people would call me Asprilla, come and play ball. Even while we were playing, I was thinking of how to die. So that's why I call it the silent killer.
So, what's the message you wish to pass to across? What's the message you wish to pass to everyone?
First of all, to family members, please, like Dr. Fadik said, don't say, I think there is something wrong with you. How can I help you? When you notice that someone is not really who they are supposed to be, if we are our brothers keepers, we will know when someone is really losing joy in their lives. It's not hidden. You cannot mask it for too long. What they need is your help, your support, your comfort. So family members, don't give up. If I could come out from that life, I lived over 10 years, at least 10 years, I was a depressed person. And within 10 years, I did everything I could to kill myself. But it's just God's grace that I did not die. There's nothing I didn't do. I took 80 different tablets and I foamed. They rushed me to the hospital and whatever. I just believe God didn't want me to die. So,
Okay.
but for the sufferer, believe me, there is hope. There is hope. Even Bible said there's hope for a tree, even if it's cut down. If I could today, at nearly 70, have a wonderful wife, have children, albeit they are very small. Some of my children are at the age of my younger ones' grandchildren. But I am married, I have children. There is hope.
Yeah.
So the suicide is not is not a solution at all.
Okay.
That's what I'll
A
say to
final
people.
question for you here. As a pastor, how would you deal with someone who has depression? Of course, you've been through it right now. Do you advise the person to pray and fast instead of seeking professional help?
I wouldn't do that. Our late Deputy General Overseer, he said, use your faith for yourself. I don't stop my family from taking medication if they have to. If I don't want to take medication, I cannot stop my wife from taking if she wants to take medication. It could be her own level of faith. But one thing I know is that there was a time our church manager said to me, Pastor Solution, how come you're never ashamed of letting people know that you were once a drug addict or a jailbird? You are not ashamed. I said, why should I be ashamed? That's my past. And if I'm ashamed, how can I let them know that Christ Jesus is still setting captives free? Whatever anybody will say about me on drugs belongs to my past. So if I meet someone who is in that situation, I'll tell them my story and I'll tell them, look, it is possible to come out. I'll help them. Up till now, I refer people to the rehab. Though I didn't go to rehab, I was delivered without going to rehab. But I still direct people to rehab where specialists can help them. But at the same time, I pray for them. I make them know that if it work, if I could come out of that, anybody can come out of it. I love drugs so much. I studied in India. So in India, whether you had money or not, if you want drug, you will have it. So I always had drugs. So if I can stay off drugs since 2001, 21st March, in prison till today, it means that anybody can stay out of drugs also. So mine is to encourage people and speak to specialists, because that's what they studied. Like today, I have learned a few words about depression I didn't know, even though I lived through the depression. So they didn't go to school for nothing. But I know that everything I do as a person, all the prisons I visit, no matter what I do, it direct you to, ultimately, I want you to know Christ. That is life.
Thank you so much, Pastor Solution, for sharing your personal experience with us. It's good to see that you're looking well, even on the way to 70. It's just something that one would want to hear. And I so much like the fact that you said you'll pray for them, but still encourage them, depending on the severity of the case, for them to go and see a specialist or go into rehab. Because, say, for example, these days, you want to see a pastor, I'm talking about people who are very religious now. And you contact probably the secretary and is saying, well, the pastor is not available until the next 6 months. So we need to be our brother's keeper, our sister's keeper. And this is part of our own, what I call the individual social responsibility, our responsibility to humanity, our contribution to humanity. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us.
Excuse me, and 1 second. You see, when people stop others from seeing specialists, I don't understand what they mean. When I was working with an insurance company here, I realized that the most difficult people to sell insurance to, life insurance to, are Christians. They say, I'm covered by the blood of Jesus. They forget that even in the Bible, it is written that there was a prophet who died, and the wife was going to, his creditors were going to take his sons, if not for Prophet Elisha, who said, what do you have? He didn't have his home in order. Nothing stops us from having life insurance. Nothing stops us from having our personal general practitioner.
Yeah.
And at the same time, of course, we pray for general practitioners. They are in the forefront now, and we pray for them to survive because they are useful to the society. Luke, who wrote
can I just stop you there, Pastor Solution?
Was also
it's
also
good,
a medical
and that's why we
practitioner.
call it the Renew the African Mindset. We need to begin to change the narrative
That's
about
why
depression,
I said this.
and especially on religion, because I mean, as you can see, it's a diverse group of people listening in: Christians, Muslims. They could also be traditionalists. They could be Buddhists, whoever. But what you're basically saying is that hold on to whatever faith you have. but at the same time, seek professional help, medical help. That's why these people are here, to help us. So thank you so much once again for your contribution. The next person I'm just going to bring up briefly here. She is actually a senior social worker with the Adult Social Services in the United Kingdom. She holds a BA in psychosocial studies. And for her master's degree, she focused on how the stigma of mental health impacts on people living with mental health problems. She is currently completing a professional doctorate degree in social work, as her research is based on experiences and coping mechanisms of Nigerian women living with depression in the UK. When she contacted me, or should I say when I contacted her, I know she's actually a researcher, she's focused on women, but she will be gaining something from this discussion today, because she will need some people to come as volunteers for her research work. However, there are couple of questions, or even more than a couple, that one would want to ask her on, her own perspective on depression. Welcome, Muibat Ali.
Thank you very much, Anne.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Wow, my first question will be, given your previous studies on the stigma of mental health, how do you think the stigma might prevent people suffering from depression to speak out?
Stigma of mental health generally can be debilitating to the lives of people who suffer from any mental health conditions, such as depression or anxiety. Stigma of mental health have been found to prevent people from seeking professional support. It will prevent people from disclosing their illness. It's prevented people from seeking employment, from going into education, from even remaining in marriage. So stigma can affect every aspect of the life of someone who is living with a mental health condition, in a nutshell.
Okay. Compared to our Caucasian counterparts, what's the level of impact among sufferers in the African communities?
Can you say that question again? I didn't quite catch it.
Compared to our Caucasian counterparts, what do you think is the level of impact among sufferers in the African communities? For example, do you think we have appropriate support in Africa as opposed to, white cousins, if you want me to put it that way?
Okay. I think from my little experience, we do have support within the Nigerian system. I must acknowledge that. Support can come in different forms. Support can be either family support, support from medical professionals, and the church, the community that you belong to. But in the UK, I think there are more support, and I'll tell you why I think there are more support within the UK.
Yeah.
Because within the UK, we've got the welfare system. So people who may be experiencing a mental health problem or depression, for example, because of unemployment, can be signposted to, organizations that can help them, to get into a meaningful employment, which as a result, they may be able to come out of their depressive condition. We also have the benefit system people can tap into within the UK. So if you are living in poverty, for example, there is that possibility for you to tap into the system to help you come out of your condition. But generally, what I have noticed, or what I have read so far, or what I know so far, is that within the Nigerian community, both at home and in the UK, the stigma associated with mental health problem is so severe to the extent that people don't want to talk about it. And when you don't talk about the condition that you have, how do you get the help? So people even find it difficult to even speak to their GPs, to their GPs or to other professionals involved in their care about what they are going through. So there are support, but it depends on how you want to go about it, and it depends on whether the person is actually ready to accept support or to seek help.
Another thing I found out, somebody was saying to me the other day, the reason, we can still prevent depression. But she said to me, why would I want to say something to people? They will laugh at me. People will know about my problems. Do you think that's also part of the reasons why some people fall further into depression?
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, it goes back to the stigma associated with the mental health problem. I am a mother of a child with special needs. I've got my first child living with autism. And what I observe is people don't want to talk about what is going on for them. So when I go out, and in the midst of Nigerians, for example, in the church, I talk about my child's condition. This is not because I want to tell people that he's got autism and I'm happy about what is going on, but just sort of destigmatize. And I think that is also applicable to any mental health problem. It's about talking about it. People may laugh at you, but the more we talk about it, the better things will become. People will become more aware that anybody can suffer from depression, anybody can suffer from any mental health problem, but there is support in place. You can seek help through your GP, through social workers, or through any sort of professional that is involved in your care, really.
I'm always talking about the fact that you don't even have to go that far if it's still mild. I mean, like I said initially, we can go through different levels of depression once in a while. Maybe it's due to lack of money, unemployment, a child not doing well at school, depression, divorce, separation. It could be a whole lot of things. And people, and some people will say, well, they will find out about me, they will laugh at me, and I'm like, what are you going through right now that somebody else hasn't been through, or they are currently going through, or that other people will go through? In fact, the person that's laughing at you could have other issues which are so severe, and they're trying to mask theirs by trying to find out about you. Somebody said, oh, well, at times they find out so much about me without helping me anyway. Well, if they can't, they can't. So it's like finding ways of coping. Am I, I'm talking about in terms of coping mechanism, which you actually talked about regards to your research, that we should develop some sort of coping mechanism. Do you believe in that?
Well, I mean, to manage depression can be, research suggests that people cope with depression in different forms. So like the pastor said, some people can go back to their pastors or to their imam and trying to seek spiritual support to sort of manage their condition. But what I have found so far within the Nigerian community is even the pastor that you are seeking help for may also be experiencing sort of mental health problem. So what you get most of the time, from my personal experience, is people don't want to talk about these issues because they are seen as being spiritually weak. The negative beliefs surrounding mental health problem has not been very helpful at all. So for me, I would again say, talk about it, be open and honest about it, regardless of what is going around you, and that help is available. You can cope by speaking to friends. You can cope by speaking to a GP. You can seek even counseling. Within the UK, we've got Mind, some kind of organization who will just do sort of talking therapy with you, engage with you over the phone, tell them what is going on with you, and things can become better for you. There are different ways of coping. You can try to go on antidepressants if that is the next level, but there are ways of managing things without it getting to that level, which is, to me, talking therapy and disclosing the illness and sort of help yourself to come out of the condition by talking about it and seeking the right support.
Thank you so much, Muibat. Thank you. And whoever is interested in becoming one of the volunteers for our research, you can send me an email or send a text message to me or whatever it is. We can also post our email address in the chat box there so that you can contact Muibat directly. Thank you so much, Muibat. The next person we're going to have is, people talk about depression. Again, we forget the family members. We forget the people around us. We forget the friends, the spouse, especially witnessing this condition. The impact of it can be so bad on some people that, in fact, they're probably on the same level as the person going through that depression themselves. So we have somebody here today, and I must say that it's taking her, she said to me, it will be some sort of relief if I were to discuss what I'm going through with my husband, because let me just give her an opportunity to share it with us, and you'll hear. And I'm sure there's some people probably watching on YouTube or will watch later on or listening here might be in the same position, but listen to what she has to say. She will be behind the camera, as I said before, to protect her identity and the identity of the family as a whole. Welcome. We've tagged it the wife of a depressive sufferer, for want of a better expression, because the professionals out there could actually say maybe we should have used some sort of other expression. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes. Briefly
Okay.
tell
So
us, how long have you
yes.
been married?
So good morning. First of all, before we start, I just want to say good morning and also to say thank you to Dr. Fadikbe, Dr. Duro Jaye, Pastor Oji, and Sister Moibat. Dr. Fadikbe, you really nailed it. You really nailed the what I'm going through. So go ahead now and you can go ahead and start.
Okay. Are you okay to go with it?
Yes, I am. One of the reasons why I decided to do this is I wanted people to understand what depression is all about. And it's an illness and it's not something that people have control over. And I wanted to share my experience with people that are suffering from it or that has a spouse or a child suffering from it. So I'm okay
How
with
long
it.
have you been married?
I've been married for 4.5 years.
Okay. What were the indicators that all was not well with your husband?
So that's really an interesting thing. Um, I think you brought it up, and Dr. Fadikbe, I think, responded to your question, the smiling depression, where my husband, all he does is smile. He's the star of the party. When we go to parties, before I notice, he's the star. Everyone knew him. Everyone wanted to be his friend. But what I noticed about it is it doesn't reciprocate. So I noticed he didn't have friends, but when we're at parties, he talks. But sometimes I kind of have to force him to open up to people. It doesn't call people, and I just noticed he wasn't very sociable. There are times, um, like there are parties because I'm a socialite. And I have to force him to go with me to parties. And I realized that people that are, I wouldn't say suffering from depression, but that are depressed, they don't want to be with people. They don't want to be sociable. They don't want to go out. They just want to be in the house by themselves. So that's how I noticed.
Okay. What exactly is he going through now?
Well, I think part of it is he has I think it's ADD or whatever you call that thing. Somebody that can't stay in one place. Um, I I strongly believe he has bipolar, but he says he doesn't. Because one minute is happy, the next minute is not.
So he hasn't
He's
been
taking
diagnosed. He hasn't been diagnosed by a doctor.
no, he has been. He's actually under the doctor's care right now. He has been for a while. He takes medication.
Hmm. How long has he been going through this condition?
From talking to him, I would say probably about 20 years. And sometimes depression is triggered by an event that both the doctors have touched on. There was an event that happened while he was working. He was strongly discriminated against as a Black person and also a Nigerian. And I think that triggered the event and affected him to the point where he doesn't trust people. And sometimes he falls into that depression where all he does is sleep. He doesn't want to talk to anyone. He doesn't want to leave the room. He just wants to sleep.
Does your husband have any indication of how you're feeling?
So that's the unfortunate thing. People that are depressed, especially if they are highly depressed. They don't have feelings towards anyone. I wouldn't say it's self-centered, it's just their mindset. They don't have that feelings. They don't know people are suffering, people around them are suffering. They don't have the feeling, the affection, the love that people around them are suffering.
How have you been coping?
Well, I'm coping by reading books. One of the things that the books that I've read as mentioned is going on walks. So nightly we go on walks, and I think it's helping now, especially with the COVID and everything out there. We go on long walks, about an hour walk every day. So I think it's helping a little bit. It's a long journey, but I know we'll get there.
Have you received any form of support from family and friends?
So unfortunately, as we all know, it's a cultural thing also. We don't like sharing our experience with people. One, we get scared that when we do share our experience, number one, what will happen is people will make fun of us. Number two, they will discount us. Number three, they will think we're crazy. And so it's very unfortunate that we have that stigma or the taboo. Even some of, I brought it up to my mom, just saying it in passing. And I'll say it in Yoruba so that people, it's stronger. She said, kò sí wèrè ní ìran mi. And that's the type of taboo that we've been brought up with. And I think the men in particular, we women, because we have that natural touch, we have the motherly touch, we're able to express ourselves. But with men, it's very, very difficult because when they start sharing their story, number one, they may not be accepted. Number two, people will say, well, you're a guy. Well, you shouldn't be going through this. So the only people I've shared my experiences is one with you and a friend of mine. And one of the things that my friend said was, you have to be very careful because even though your husband is suffering from depression, you have to be very careful that you yourself don't go through that episode as well.
Thank you. What do you think the future holds for you?
Well, I believe that, and I know some people, but I really don't care what people say, but this is my take. It's for better, for worse, in sickness and in health and in pain. So I believe that I need to stick with my husband and see it through. And I believe that the support that I give him would help him out. One of the things that I want people to understand on the phone, and I think Dr. Fadikbe, Dr. Jurojaye, they've spoken about it. When people are going through depression, the last thing you want to tell them, if you know they're on medication, is to say, oh, go take your medication. That doesn't help. Number two, the other thing is to listen, to pay attention to them, give them the love and support that they're, even though they don't want it, but showing that you support them. It's not all the time. It's not 24/7 that they are depressed. They have a time where they see the light and they act normally like we do. But so it's not a 24/7 illness. So so that's my take, is being the wife, sticking with it because I believe in my vows, and I think that's the way I can. That's what I see.
That's really deep. Somebody posted words of encouragement for you. God bless you and give you the ongoing strength to keep supporting your husband and your great family. And I'm sure that will be echoed by everybody listening to your experience. Thank you so much for sharing with us. We wish you the very best of luck, and we wish your husband well.
Thank you.
Now, I'm supposed to bring in the counselor, but because one of the media personality actually has another meeting, and we have to quickly bring him in, and he's in Nigeria, so I'm just going to bring him right here. We're talking about the media here now. The media, people in the media, they're very powerful. Information they put out there makes great impact on the society. How can we begin to change the narrative of demystifying mental illness, depression, which we're really talking about today? What can they do using their own position in the society to change the narrative? We have two gentlemen here. One is they're both media entrepreneurs. One's actually a writer. The other one is a broadcaster, a radio host. So one of the duo is Mr. Sonny Irabo. He's actually the chairman of Rui Communications Limited, the host of Sonny Irabo Live. Sonny Irabo Media Group comprises of 4 companies specializing in each area of media and broadcasting. These are Ruicom, the advertising and brand development arm of the group, the Sonny Irabo Institute of Media Communication, which is the finishing school for media practitioners. Then we have the Sonny Irabo Live, which is the primetime talk show, and the Sonny Damian Irabo and Associates, which is the planning and the buying arm of the group. In a nutshell, we're talking about a big institution here. The group covers all aspects of media practice, delivering excellence across all spheres of media. Welcome, Mr. Sonny Irabo.
Hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Sunday.
I know we have
Strangest thing is
in because of the town hall meeting.
about vacation just now.
Yes.
If you hear any drone in the background, please forgive me. Everything has been going so smoothly until this 1 minute ago when things started to go awry, but we are coping with it.
Okay.
I heard you say I'm calling from Nigeria. I'm very proudly so. But you know, the beauty of Nigeria is that anything can happen and you can survive it.
Yes.
Including depression.
Good.
However, we've learned a lot, and thanks to Dr. Fadikwe and Dr. I forgot his name. But
let me quickly fire on the questions because you'll soon be going off within the next 5 minutes or so. Let me just use this opportunity to inform everyone listening to me that we're running a bit late. I know depending on the topic of the day, it can be so engaging that we overrun by about 20 or 20. Well, let's keep it within 20 to 30 minutes anyway. The number one question I have for you, you are a seasoned broadcaster, Mr. Sonny Irabo, and the host of Sonny Irabo Live. What role do you think the media can play in destigmatizing depression, particularly in men who hardly talking about what they're going through?
Well, in actual fact, I think the media is not doing enough at all. Because the media is supposed to be the one that is enlightening the people, you know, making them understand the implications of whatever you go through in life. And what I have seen lacking, especially in Nigeria, I have to be specific about Nigeria, is health care and education. And this is what is lacking and very strongly missing in media practice. You know, healthcare, I expect, and I know that there are some publications, especially the press, you know, the berating people. My colleague is there, Dele Momodu, and he will tell you. But if only they paid more attention into doing the pros and cons of even the medicine you take, the side effect it gives, and why so many people, I mean, I've heard of situations where somebody went to another country and they said there was misdiagnosis in Nigeria. And so because of that, the medication given to him was wrong. That's an aside. So I'm saying that the media ought to be doing more research into the problems that we have in healthcare. And this time we're zeroing into depression. Depression. Almost everyone is suffering from depression. Almost everyone. In this country where nothing seems to work, what do you think will happen? People are learning to get used to the conditions they find themselves. And sometimes those conditions can be so bad that they don't even know they are depressed. How come Nigeria has more incidents of wife battering, men beating their wives? There was a video that was running around last week. To hit his wife, and she fell down. That was a 15-second video, or maybe less. But that impact alone, I saw on my own platform the reactions from different people. So I immediately said to myself, that man who could not manage his anger is giving symptoms of severe depression, for all I care. So I think the media, talk shows, columnists, the Dele Momodus of this world, he's a very powerful Nigerian media practitioner. And many of us, my wife even wrote a book that borders on something called depression. He said, from dust to dew. And it was a story of hope. But if you read that story, you can see how she metamorphosed from processes of depression to how she came over it. But one thing she didn't lack, which is what one of the doctors said, was that the women are better at talking to their doctors than the men are of even opening up to their wives and saying there's something wrong with me. So I think, honestly, and I'm taking this as a cue from you, Anne, thank you very much, because it's a very beautiful setup, a very beautiful program you've just done. I'll call it a program. And I'm going to follow it up. And if you don't mind, I would like to have some of you, including you, Anne, on my talk show so we can escalate it to the next level. And I'm going to throw it open to the world. You'll be surprised when people phone in and they tell you what problems they are going through. Many are afraid of their so-called cultural and traditional values. Some are complaining that, it's the society, it's the peers. Then there are those in the homes who are saying even their children cannot, understand what they are doing. That's the men. Why will your children understand what you're doing when you don't converse with your children? You are in your own comfort zone. They are in their own comfort zone. There's a disconnect, and if charity does not begin from home, then where should it begin? So there's so many issues wrong with the whole process. The Nigerian systemic problem is there. The rules of law here not followed. Political landscape is. Let me not go into that side, please. I don't want to bore you. I'm just saying the media is not doing it.
Yes. My next question to you is, given the African culture, and in particular Nigeria, with a flair for organizing high-profile parties and spraying of cash as if it's going out of circulation, do you think some of our men are keeping up appearances?
Next way, it's a mask, for all I care. There's a program we used to call Money Misroad when I was with Radio Nigeria. Now, what is money misroad? You spend the big money for the wrong things, for all the wrong reasons. Why are you spending so much on parties when your schools are not doing well? Your hospitals are not doing well. Your doctors are not even well paid. I'm sure Dr. Why do I always forget my only man's name?
Dr. Durojaye.
Dr. Durojaye,
yes.
Yes, Dr. Durojaye will bear me witness when I say medical doctors in Nigeria are probably the worst paid in the world. So honestly, I think it's because we're running away from the truth, and men who throw big parties don't even know what to do with their money. That's the truth.
The thing is, we don't begrudge them, but I'm just talking about keeping up with the Joneses or keeping up appearances. My next question to you, or the final one before you quickly go off, how can we begin to change the narrative? You talk to us a bit about it and encourage people to openly discuss personal and sensitive issues such as depression.
Start by talking about it, start by writing about it, start by opening programs and inviting people. And truly, when you invite people, they really do talk. I'll be honest with you. There's a program just before mine every Sunday on Inspiration FM. It's called Wellness Half Hour. And he's a medical doctor. And when he invites people, they talk. I think the people want, they want to be talked to. The people want they want ears to listen to their grievances, to their cries, to their voices. We are not opening up enough. There's too much apathy on the part of the society. And that's leaving so many people alone in their so-called comfort zones. I heard the lady talk about the husband wanting to sleep. All he wants to do is rest. Doesn't that tell you something? He's shying away from the public because I think he knows there's something wrong with him, but he cannot explain what it is. But he doesn't want to carry his problem on the people. Whereas it's the opposite we should be doing. We should get him to talk more, come out of his, cocoon and try to talk about his problems. Because when you counsel, then there is a better response.
That's true. You won't believe the number of people who actually call me. And I always say, it's so strange. People always think that it's just single people who go through depression. But majority of people who talk to me, they are married men. And I'm thinking to myself, when the wife now finds out, why don't you find out the reason why that man will be comfortable talking to a third party about his depression instead of thinking, so how long have you known her? So why should you be talking to her and not me? You know, those kind of things. So is it because we haven't created the enabling environment, or is it still to do with our mindset? Because I had to eventually go for a course in counseling because I was getting affected as well, listening to everybody's issue. And I really pity the likes of Dr. Ojuro Jaye, Dr. Fadikwe as well, and also Tokwe Abulude, who will be talking to later on, the counselor, because you hear all these things. And why? This so-called, I don't think even the so-called big men will come to you and say, Sonny, guess what? I'm going through this.
If we create awareness more, if we talk about the problems more, if we get all the doctors involved, especially social psychologists, psychiatrists, and counselors, even medical practitioners, the frontline physicians, they are counselors in a way. I'm sure they were all trained in the hospitals on how to counsel their patients. You need to, even media practitioners are supposed to be counselors because we employ people of different genre of lifestyles. So the truth is, we do not want to face the reality that is dealing with us. And that's going to be a bigger problem because Nigeria is not on the right path of progress yet, unless they start confronting these problems.
Thank you.
Charity must begin at home.
Charity must begin at home. So because you still be going off, what would be your final word on depression? A takeaway message, at least as a result of this program, if we save one life over the festive period, we should continuously be our brother's keeper, our sister's keeper all the time. But as part of your own individual social responsibility, what's the message you want to pass on?
Well, I should just say to the world, those who are sufferers, those who are non-sufferers, those who live with sufferers, and those who just see others from afar, leave an open mind. Do not rush to condemn. You must be empathic. We have no empathy in our lifestyle and our attitude to others. You have to, sympathy is an aspect, but if you are empathic, your sympathy becomes more realistic. Okay? I think that our society, look at the ordinary human being on the street. When you are in trouble, some of them just come they rally around, they try to help you. Whereas in some other cases, you say, I better leave him alone, Joy. Let him sort himself out. Then the bigger people who have all the money in the world, who bury money is in their toilet pits. Is that not, I beg, doctors, is that not mark of depression? Go and bury $43 million in the toilet pit because you don't want to share. How did they even get the money at all? The depression is starting from the top and you're talking about the bottom. We have a bigger problem. Let me just end it there because I'm getting emotional.
Thank you so
I
much.
think that.
Thank you so much. Very much appreciated. Good luck with your town hall meeting. Next, we have a counselor, and people shy away from going to see a psychiatrist or psychotherapist, psychologist, or whoever. But with us, we have a counselor today to inform us about his own role in all of this, in the way he manages his own clients who come to see him for various conditions. Tokpe Abulude is a trauma-informed counselor and member of the British Association of Counselors and Psychotherapists. He's a qualified integrative counselor. He works with adults as well as young adults, experienced in general counseling, and focuses on areas such as depression, anxiety, stress management, relationship, couples and relationship counseling, loss and bereavement. Welcome, Tokwe.
Hi, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Welcome. Thank you for coming here today on the program. I have some questions for you. Yes. Why are you different from a psychiatrist, psychotherapist, or psychologist? What's your main focus as opposed to the other professions?
Well, my main focus is talk therapy. Mm-hmm. It's the Dr. Fadikwe and Dr. Durojai, I think, will be dealing with treatment, prescriptive medicine and stuff like that. Counseling is more about helping the client over a period of time through talk.
Right.
Okay. This is one of the things we've been talking about. Men don't talk, men don't talk. So that's where we're there. Right. Come and talk to us.
Okay. How receptive do you think people are in terms of seeking your advice?
Well, counseling is not about advice. That's one of the myths we have to debunk. It's not about advising you. It's about walking that journey with you. Mm-hmm. About walking that journey with you, and also helping you find out how you can explore how you would deal with the situations that are going on with you. There's no one size fits all. So it would be about knowing you and just basically exploring how we can help you get to your own solutions.
Okay. Do you usually get African men coming to use your service?
I think recently there is a lot more than say in the past 5 years or so. I think there's beginning to become a lot more awareness than used to be in the past. So now I work with a few pastors now where they would refer some of their members to me to see, because some of the issues that they come to them with are either they don't have the time, and I don't mean that in a bad way, or the expertise to deal with those things specifically.
Right. It's so strange you mentioned that, because I was thinking to myself that if a client told you, okay, they've been referred, but the person comes to you and says, I know it's spiritual, I don't need to see a counselor or a psychiatrist, how would you be able to convince that person that they still need counseling?
Well, I mean, I think, they would already be with me. So that's a plus. So we will start off from there. And it's not for me to tell them that, whatever they're seeking is not right. It's about helping them to understand, that the treatment can be collaborative. Like one of the people said earlier, you can be praying, but we can also be trying to help to find out what might be the causes, or just sort of walk that journey with you.
Mm-hmm. Mhm. What do you think are the triggers we should be looking out for or stressors? For example, when we hosted the first RAM discussion program during the Zoom period, I said during, during the COVID period, to be quite honest with you, because RAM has been in existence since 2012. But we started the virtual meetings on the 11th of April. And the first one was coping with self-isolation. I was actually looking at on Facebook. You could tell some men were really breaking down with the things they were writing. Some people will video themselves the way they would look. So what do you think are the triggers we should be looking for or stressors to say that?
Well, do you know what's interesting? I think the speakers ahead of me have told you a lot of, things.
Yeah.
Some of the things that would trigger on cause would be abuse. People are in lockdown, and so the real person comes out when you apply pressure to a person. The real person inside comes out.
Yeah.
Some husbands are not used to being in a house with their wives for a particular length of time, because work, they're going away working most of the time. But then now you have to sit there, you have to experience the marriage relationship and the parental relationship as well. So some of these things are stressors. There's a lot of bereavement and death going around as well. Again, life events, these things are happening. Dr. Fadipe said earlier about major events, abuse, I particularly interested in trauma. And so, some of the situations that we're living in now are not necessarily what we would call normal. And so people are being re-traumatized, by certain of the events that are happening. So these are all the stuff that we're having to deal with and explore and look into. And so, yeah, if you're looking for stressors, I think those are things to watch out for.
Okay, thank you so much for your contribution, Dr. Will. Tokwe. Thank you. I'll quickly bring back Dr. Fadipe. You talked a bit about the depressions available for depression, and how long can depression be treated for? Is it an individual thing or the severity of the case, or both, combination of both?
It's both, and there's something known as recurrent depression. So people can have depression on more than one occasion.
Mhm.
So depending on the severity of depression, as Mr. Abulude and Dr. Jodai have said, if it's mild or moderate, it's the talking therapies that you should be looking at. So cognitive behavioral therapy, interpersonal therapy, family therapy, or counseling, that's what you should be looking at. If it's more severe than that, then you should be considering an antidepressant medication to help people. And if it's very severe, you have things like people being in hospital, and you've got various other treatments for the very, very severe end of depression. Electroconvulsive therapy, transcranial magnetic stimulation, and the use of antipsychotics. The most effective treatment is a combination. So both medication and psychological therapy is the most effective treatment.
Okay, so for a mild form of depression, what would you recommend in terms of change of lifestyle?
Exercise is supposed to help. So your survivor or the wife of the patient was talking about going out for walks. When you go out for walks, your body releases the feel-good hormones known as serotonin, which then makes you feel better. So exercise is an evidence-based treatment for mild depression.
Mhm.
And then talking to someone, having a confiding relationship is extremely important. So whoever you feel able to talk to, that's also very helpful.
One of the comments I got from some gentlemen was that there's some people, they just give you the triggers. They say some saying things that just annoys you. So would you say that part of trying to avoid depression or to avoid going further into depression is to avoid some people?
I wouldn't say that. If there are people that make you, or well, if there are people that cause you to doubt yourself, or you find yourself becoming annoyed with them, maybe you need to try and limit your contact with them.
Okay.
Rather than avoid them. And I suppose it's looking at, because it may be the irritability that you have, which makes you feel as if someone's saying something that annoys you. So one has to be very clear as to what is causing the annoyance or the irritability. But if there is somebody that you feel is not good for you, maybe you limit your contact with them. But you need to understand that context.
Okay. Thank you very much. The last but not the least, I'm bringing in another media entrepreneur. Well, very popular within the Nigerian setting, especially with the creme de la creme of the Nigerian social scene. Chief Dele Momodu is a Nigerian journalist, publisher, businessman, and motivational speaker. He is the chief executive officer and publisher of Ovation International, a magazine that has given publicity to people from all over the world, mainly in Africa. In 2015, he officially launched Ovation TV and subsequently an online newspaper called The Boss. Dele Momodu has received numerous awards and honors for his work in the world of business, politics, literature, the music, and fashion industry. He writes a weekly column called Pendulum, published every Saturday on the back page of This Day newspaper. The articles are praised for highlighting issues in Nigeria, as well as discussing popular topics, current events, and notable people, often in a polemic or critical style. He's a social media influencer with millions of followers on Twitter and Facebook. Welcome, Chief Dele Momodu.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I've been thoroughly educated today, I must say. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here with us. You are a media entrepreneur. How do you think we can begin to change the narrative on male depression?
Well, I think my big brother, Uncle Sonny Rabo, has said a lot already, and I can only re-echo some of the things he said, which, of course, I tend to agree with. We must speak up. Writers must use themselves as guinea pigs, as examples, as a way of encouraging others to also know that whatever you suffer today, you are not suffering it alone. And I can give my own personal example. I write a column called Pendulum, which I started in 1991. And I still write it today. I write on the back page of This Day newspaper and also in our own paper called The Boss. And what makes that column very popular is the fact that I'm ready to discuss any topic. I'm ready to talk about myself. For example, I remember writing an article called This Beach of a Life. And you won't believe some of the things I discussed. I'm only fortunate that I didn't end up getting into depression because I've faced many depressive situations in my life. I'll start from when I was about 23 years old, or thereabout, about 22, 23. I fell in love with a girl. And suddenly, a girl that I thought I was going to marry changed very, very drastically, and I couldn't bear it. You will not believe it. I ended up in hospital. And in fact, I was suffering from insomnia, and my doctor asked me, what is the problem? I said, I've just been jilted. And the man couldn't understand how a young man like myself will fall so much in love. But to cut a long story short, you will not believe it, he pumped me an injection. And he told me the injection was going to make me sleep. and that maybe when I wake up, I'll wake up to better reality. It's a lie. I couldn't sleep. He had to pump a second injection, and he told me, he said, if I pump this injection into a horse, the horse must fall asleep. You will not believe it. My eyes were wide open. You know, you can call it love madness, but I suffered that. A second time, again, my girlfriend jilted me because I didn't know until later she called me a squatter. You see, poverty can be a major issue, especially for men. You know, men suffer from what we call male ego. You cannot imagine that a woman would leave you because every time she comes to see you, you are staying in a friend's house. And when you go to see her in school, you are also going to invite her to a friend's house. So she's looking at, hey, what prospect have I got with this kind of man who is a perpetual squatter? So, but you see, I was able through reading. So I was going to say that people must cultivate the habit of reading about other people. That's why I love biographies. There is no problem you have that someone else has not suffered before. A lot of people don't know that. But through reading, I realized that a lot of people have gone through so much in life. And two of my favorite writers in Nigeria, they were both women. The first is of blessed memory, was my boss, Maylin Ezekiel, who was married to my friend Richard Mofedamijo. When she was writing about how she was going into depression because she was looking for a child, people were teasing her. She had to go from one pastor to a herbalist to a diviner. People, they gave her concoctions, including asking her to drink her own menstruation. The day I read that, I said, yes, this is it. Because it was so graphic and people could, relate to her story. But when you have writers who go through the usual stereotypes, they label people as, don't mind, there are people I see, people still write it, especially on social media, he's a mad person, and they don't know what has led to that. So, but I think by and large, people are coming out to speak up about depression. The second person is my very dear auntie, Sister Betty Rabo, Uncle Sonny Rabo's wife. She's written copiously about depression. People see her. I mean, she is one of the most successful publishers in Nigeria, publishing Genevieve magazine, but they don't know what is beneath publishing. They don't know the stress that we face, and they don't know the shame of when your magazine is going down, because everybody will notice immediately that, hey, your business is dead, unlike other businesses which people will not notice. If I'm no longer a journalist, people will notice immediately, and people can get into depression. Even members of their family will never know. The other,
I think we have a frozen network there. Oh, he's come back.
Yes, I said the next one that men go through is infertility. You get married, 1 year after, your wife is not pregnant. In the past, people used to blame only the woman. But through my own personal experience, I realized that men can also suffer from it. It could be temporary, it could be permanent. I got married, for example, in 1992. Today actually is my 28th wedding anniversary.
Oh, happy wedding anniversary.
Yeah, thank you so much. And you will not believe it. People are expecting a baby like they're expecting a certificate from a university. Within 1 year, you begin to go through a lot of pressure. And in my own case, I was fortunate because my wife encouraged me that, look, let's go to a doctor somewhere in Ikoyi who will be able to advise us. We went through tests. I wrote about all these things. And then that was when I realized that a lot of men were suffering in silence.
Exactly. But they wouldn't talk about it.
But they wouldn't talk to anybody. They wouldn't even be able, even when their wife tries to discuss with them, let's go and see a doctor, they say nothing is wrong with me. It's assumed that it's only the woman who is suffering from it. And the last example I'll give, and is the most controversial, is that, trust me, if a man does not have money, he is very, very, very close to depression. Especially those of us who have lived abroad. You need to see when the bills come, you feel less than a man. When your wife comes and every day you are always complaining, you are always giving excuses, you feel less than a man. And that is how people tend to suffer. They get quieter. They can't even go out. They can't meet the basic needs and necessities of life. But as I said, through writing, we have been able to help a lot of people to see that, look, my mom taught me, my mom was an illiterate, but she taught me something, and this is important. I said, no matter how bad your situation is, there'll be someone you can always run to for help.
Thank you so much for that. Thank you for sharing that with us. You know, it reminded me of what someone said to me. And she said, oh, my husband is very quiet. He's fine. But I knew he's not, because he was telling me something else. In all the years they've been married, he has hardly worked. And she said, well, I don't think there's anything wrong with our marriage. And the guy said, but where do I even want to go? I don't have any money. I'm just stuck here inside the house. And, you know, some of us could tell that the guy is depressed because he's changed drastically over the years. So it's so funny that you should mention that one of the causes of depression for men, everybody really, but for men mainly, is due to lack of money. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And hopefully, as you mentioned in your writings, you'll be able to write about male depression with, you know, giving hope to people that it's not the end of the world. There is hope out there. And another thing I wanted to ask you before you go is that as the publisher of a high society magazine called Ovation, do you feel that the lifestyle portrayed via media outlets could be a contributory factor to depression, as some people feel pressurized and aspire to emulate such celebrities without realizing that some of them could even be living fake lives?
Oh, definitely. I always tell people, a lot of people accuse Ovation, you can make us steal. And I say it depends on your background. I meet all the billionaires, especially in Africa. Right. I've come across so many of them. But it has never affected me in any way to say I am going to do more than I can afford to do. Right. I tell people, if you come to me and you are expecting so much, I try to explain to you that I'm only selling paper. And there is a limit to how much money I can make from selling paper. If you go and steal because your mates are building houses, in fact, you will not believe it, my older brother came to me one day. I was already in my 40s. And he said he wanted to fight me. How can I not have a house with all the name that I have? I didn't have a house in Nigeria. When he finished, I said, sir, it's your fault. I lived with you growing up at the University of Ife. He was a professor there in Ife. I said, you never taught me how to steal. He just carried his bag and left. So people can find excuses for anything. It's because a magazine published the home of the rich and famous. It's your business. Do what you can afford. I never rushed into anything. I got my first house where we live modestly, maybe at the age of 56, 57. That's it. And I'm not competing with anybody. Human beings must learn to compete only with themselves. Because if you run after what you cannot afford, you will end up in depression at the end of the day or in jail.
Thank you so much for that. I think Tokwe has a question. What's the question, please?
Sorry, it wasn't a question. I just wanted to get something in before we close. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, sorry.
No, please go ahead.
I was going to say, we just wanted to get back to the topic, which is why men don't talk. And I can say, when you come to any of the professionals on the panel today, or like myself being a counselor, one of the things you're assured of is confidentiality.
Right.
It's one of the big things that people are afraid of. They're going to take my business outside. A proper professional counselor, or any of the ladies and gentlemen on here, would always offer you confidentiality and empathy, and what we call within the industry unconditional positive regard, which is we don't judge you. It will be confidential. You won't be judged. And the whole idea of being a counselor is offer you that empathy that would hopefully help you get from one place to another. So that's just what I wanted to say in closing.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions here. Does NLP, I think Tokwe should be able to answer this. Okay, you're still there. Does NLP help depressed people?
What is NLP?
NLP, neuro-linguistic programming.
Well, yes, that is not my area of specialty, but yes, I have heard that, yes, it does work. But again, I would like to, probably, send that to one of the doctors in here, because they will be able to explain better.
I think Dr. Fadikwe has stepped down. Would Dr. Tony be able to take it? Would you have an idea of what NLP is all about, Dr. Tony Magbagbiola?
Well, I always say it's best to go simple.
Right.
Start from the basic conversation, talking like the counselor said. Mm-hmm. That is another step higher. But also it depends on your level of understanding, your level of education, your level of ability. So it does work, but I always say keep it simple. Okay. Talk about the situation, use practical things, listen to your counselors, listen to your doctors, and just,
All right. And
NLP is like hitting a nail with,
Okay. There's a comment here or a question. Somebody mentioned loss of appetite. I've heard it before that when people are depressed, they eat a lot more and they tend to put on weight. Is this wrong, Dr. Durojaye? I fall into this category. Let me be honest. I don't lose weight.
No, it's not. It could go either way. For a lot of people, they tend to lose appetite, but some also eat more. Okay. You are not alone. I have a friend like that who tends to add more weight when she's depressed, because she just locks herself in and then eats a lot. So it could go either way, just like sleep too. Some find it difficult to fall asleep, while like the case of the person that was discussed, the husband sleeps more and is depressed.
I have a question here. What do I do if the support and medication does not work?
Like we said, most of the time, the best form of treatment is combination therapy. So it should involve both medications and then psychotherapy, counseling, like Mr. Tokwe does. So you need to combine all of that. And then also probably identifying the trigger, if you can eliminate it, or what perpetuates it. You might need to identify it and then eliminate it.
Okay. We've talked about the stigma. Somebody here says, can you imagine a professor going to see a counselor on a weekly basis? He wouldn't want to do it because of the stigma attached to depression in Africa, where we come from. This is where the US is different. Caucasian cousins will tell you at 3 o'clock, I'm going to see my shrink. You dare not say that in Africa, or else they'll be looking at you in a But we could always prevent that, by talking to someone. And anyway, another comment here is that, I think this goes to Dele Momodu. I'll pass that message on to him. Somebody saying that you're a source of inspiration. And somebody asked a question here. Well, maybe you'd like to answer it yourself. Dr. Ogushaye is also another consultant psychiatrist in the house. In fact, he's the first resident psychiatrist I have on my RAM here. He says, what's the difference between counseling and psychology? Do you want to take that yourself, Dr. Ogushaye, or Do you want, if Tokwe can do that for us? Does anybody have an answer to that? What's the difference between counseling and psychology?
I think Tokwe should take it.
No, if Tokwe knows the difference.
Well, I can tell you about counseling.
Okay.
And you know, I think, you know, we already covered it. You know, most counselors, we work from, you know, different backgrounds or theories or persuasions. I work mostly from a person-centered yet integrative. So I work with the person in the room, and so they would bring, you know, the issues, and I would use the theories that I know, you know, to explore what's going on with them. So that's, you know, it's walking the journey with the client. We don't call them patients when they're with us; they're clients with us. So that's what counseling is about. So yeah, that's.
So,
You
I
know,
mean,
like
I tried to look for a Nigerian psychologist, but well, we have a baby psychologist on board, but I don't think she has that much of an experience to be able to share. She's actually learning on this Renewing African Mindset discussion program. I can see
one of the things I wanted to add to that. Sorry to interrupt you,
Yes.
Anne. Was that, you know, we talk about we've been talking. A couple of people have mentioned this. You know, when we bring a problem.
Yes.
Do you understand? Most of the time, the way we're wired, the way Africans have grown up is not to wash your dirty linen in public.
Right.
So you have most of these, what we're talking about is shrouded in secrecy,
Right.
you know, and that's where the problem is. You know, if you bring something into the light,
Yes.
then you see it, you know, and
Yes.
potentially people can get in there to help you out, you know. So for so long as what we're talking about is kept, you know, shrouded in secrecy because of the stigma and all of those sort of things, we're not going to have any solutions. So, you know, I encourage any and everyone on here, if you know anyone, talk about it, bring it out into the light, let's see it, let's look at it, and potentially we can find help for it.
Thank you very much. I've got a comment here from Mrs. Omowale Nola. She says psychology is the study of the mind and behavior of human beings. We do agree with that. I think I have a hand up from Chi Otumba Oseni. Was that a question or a comment?
Well, it's both question and a contribution.
Yeah.
If I want to ask first, any of the experts can answer me. Can that be true that somebody can be caused? You know, it's a kind of myth that people can be caused to be mad. Is that true? And the second question is, I have a daughter that is also going through mental illness. So the question is, will she ever be well? Maybe a layman question.
Dr. Gushaya, do you want to take that second question? Will she ever be well?
Yes, it's difficult to say when you do not know the parameters, the specificities of the individual. But suffice to say that none of us has the wherewithal or the authority to pronounce on another human being that they will never be well. Mm-hmm. I would not want to do that. Mm-hmm. So, sir, I think I know that you know Anne very well. So off camera we can talk, but the one thing I know with programs like this is that, you know, when we come out and talk on issues like this, we are demystifying, and with education, things begin to become clearer. So I think there is hope, and I believe your daughter can have a good life, and I believe it's not about cure. I don't know enough to say cure, but I believe that she can have a good life. And I believe that with good input, and there's something about psychiatry, and my other colleagues on the program and the pastor and everybody else can attest to the fact that increasingly we are now talking about transcultural psychiatry, where treatment is tailor-made and recognizes the cultural background of the person. So there is hope and we can talk off camera, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Otuba Hosseini also asked the question with regards to, can somebody be cursed as a mad person? Perhaps I will throw it to Dele Momodu, given the fact that you live in Nigeria and you've moved with some movers and shakers of the society, you might be able to help us there. Is it true that somebody can be cursed with madness?
Oh, definitely there is that general belief which is more cultural than spiritual. People see it as spiritual, but I would say it's more cultural. I studied Yoruba for my first degree at the University of Ife, and I studied Ogun, Abenugongo. You know, so people tend to believe that some people have the spiritual power, or what I would call magical, instead of spiritual, magical power to speak to people. Even in the Bible, you will read where they said a tree was cursed and the tree withered. So if it is possible by the Israelites to curse a tree and the tree withered, so why would you say an African will not believe that you can speak to somebody and the person will go mad? They will say, you know, that's the whole concept of it in Yoruba. Yes, people believe it. Whether it is real and factual, I would not know. But I know that people believe in it. And if you can pick a remote control and control something thousands of miles away, so don't rule out that we also had such powers at some point. Whether it still exists or not, it's also a state of your mind. Like, I will not sleep now and imagine that somebody wants to curse me. I think I've uplifted myself spiritually to that level where I don't believe it is possible. But that is not to say that some people somewhere don't accept that fact.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Thank you. Now, we'll quickly go through myths or facts. And I just have some statements here. Are they myths? Are they facts? Number one, depression is a Caucasian condition. Dr. Ogumi, is that right? Ogushaye, is that right or not? Depression is a Caucasian condition. Yes or no? Yes or no? Oh, you're still connecting. Okay, Tokwe, can you take that? Depression is
Absolutely
a Caucasian
not.
condition. Yes or no?
Absolutely not.
No. Okay. Then the next one. Depression only affects women. Dr. Toyin.
It affects everyone.
Everyone. Thank you. Depression only affects young people. Dr. Ogushaye.
It affects everyone, as Dr. Toyin said.
Okay.
It's commoner in women.
Yes or no is what I need. Depression only affects the single and married. Muibat is actually off camera. Okay. I'll go back to Tokwe.
So could you repeat the question, please?
Depression only affects the single or unmarried people.
No.
No. Okay. Once you are depressed, you are mad. Muibat. Yes or no?
That is incorrect.
Okay.
What does it mean?
Depression can affect anyone regardless of social and financial status. That's the solution. Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Depression can be cured. Dr. Toyin.
Well, it depends. I was just going to mention that apart from the psychological aspect of depression, there are actually other conditions, medical conditions that could actually cause depression.
Okay.
So we have a couple of things like vitamin D, very popular, thyroid function. So yes, you might be depressed, but it's also advisable to rule out any physical cause. Thank you.
Thank you. Depression is a disease. Pastor Solution. When you were depressed, was it a disease? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, it was a disease to you. Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Ogushaye, would you say it's a disease?
It's a disorder.
It's a disorder. Okay, those are the experts. What about you from a counselor's perspective? Is it a disease or a condition or?
I'm more likely to go with a disorder.
You are more likely to go. What about you, Dr. Durojaye?
A disorder, a condition.
Okay. Depression can be short, medium, or long term. Dr. Durojaye?
Yes.
Yes. So different term.
Yes, there are different terms.
Talking to a counselor can help with depression. Pastor Solution, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Speaking out to family and friends can help with depression. Muibat.
Absolutely correct.
Okay. Having mental health issue does not mean you walk around naked. Dr. Ogushaye.
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay. Consulting a psychiatrist is nothing shameful. Dele Momodu.
Please repeat that.
Consulting a psychiatrist is nothing to be shameful about.
Nothing at all. It's like going to your doctor for
Yeah.
malaria, for typhoid, for anything.
Okay. Depression can be a silent killer. Would you say yes or no, Pastor Solution?
Absolute yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right then. Talking about your problems is therapeutic. Talk by.
Absolutely.
Okay. Stress can trigger depression. Dr. Durojaye.
Yes, it's a live event.
Okay. Walking away from unpalatable situation is not a sign of weakness. Dele Momodu.
It is not.
Okay, right. The examples have been given here is to do with domestic violence. You just walk away from it, even though you are in Banana Island, and this is an unpalatable situation. So you think if you walk away from it, is a sign of weakness, or it's not a sign of weakness?
It is not.
It is not.
It
Whether
saves
it's
you
or an argument.
It saves you a lot of headache. My father taught me that when we were young, anytime we got home and we made food untouched, it means he has just gone away quietly because he didn't want an argument.
Okay. The cause of depression in men. This actually came from a medical doctor. The cause of depression in men is women. Dr. Ogushaye, do you agree?
No, I disagree.
You disagree.
I agree substantially.
It can
I
contribute.
Said this yesterday.
I say the cause of depression is life.
Life.
Sorry?
Everything that is in life.
Okay. Now let's hear from the Nigerian perspective, because maybe we still have to create an enabling environment so that we have a better understanding of depression. Dele Momodu says he believes up to a certain degree.
I believe so. And based on my interactions with people, in fact, there is a saying that the problem of a woman is a man, and the problem of a man.
Okay.
And the problem of a man is woman. If you trace most of the problems of men that I have interacted with, and I interact, you know that very well. I'm a very sociable person. It has to do with a woman somewhere. When a man buys an expensive car, he wants to impress a woman. And when a man is losing money, the first person to know will be the women. And they will start moving away from him. And that causes a lot of problems for a lot of men.
Dr. Durojaye, do you believe that? Given the type of patients you see as well?
Well, I would say that spousal issues are significant when it comes to depression in men.
Thank you.
It can be significant, but it's
what
not all of
about
life.
The people who are depressed, even though they're
so that's why I'm saying that all of life, like Dr. Ogushaye said, all of life is all of life.
Can you repeat that, Dr. Durojaye? Can you repeat what you've just said?
Okay, I said, just like Dr. Ogushaye said, all of life and all the events of life could be a cause or a trigger for depression. But also relationships in general, could cause depression.
Okay. And Dr. Ogushaye says here, spiritual aspect of depression can be addressed by the pastor. From what we've gathered here today is that in as much as maybe your medication or whatever, even if you're still spiritual, you can be seeing your pastor as well as taking your medication or still seeing your doctor. Do you agree with that, Tokwe?
Sorry, my volume dropped, so I didn't quite hear the question.
So we're talking about combination of the spiritual aspect, dealing with the spiritual aspect, and also the medical, that the combination is the way to go. If you're that spiritual, Yeah,
I agree with that. I think, that collaborative work, would help you, it's just, it works.
Okay, all right, thank you. Just one last question I'll take from Dr. Comfort Momo. What would you like to say? Comment or a question before we quickly round up?
Hi, just excuse me. Just want to say thank you so much to the speakers for their insight into mental health. We all need to reach out to our friends and families, especially now that they've just announced that we're in tier 4 here in UK. Christmas is cancelled and no mixing. Please let us continue this discussion outside this platform and be the voice for the voiceless. And thank you so much, all the speakers, and thank you, Anne.
Thank you so much. George Fatterson, you have a question there or a comment? Could you quickly say, let's have it. Can you unmute George? Okay, we'll take.
Now I'm muted now.
Okay, right.
Right. I was just saying, in relation to my own take on things, I think we sometimes it's a bit of a too much expectation from other people. I believe, it's all about your mindset as well. It's just the way you view things. I like to see things from a very positive perspective. I'm not saying. I believe depression is caused by a lack of expression. So, i.e., people want to do or say certain things, but they're more constrained by other people's perception. That's just my take.
Okay, thank you. Taiwo Ross, that's the last one we're going to take. Taiwo Ross.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I actually had more than a few questions that I had listed here on my computer. I'll just try to cut to the one that's not been mentioned so far. So we've talked about a number of things. We've talked about remedies, but I also wanted to talk about or hear from the panel in terms of prevention. Okay, not so much the remedies, but prevention. And then I also wanted to say this. If we look at, I've made lots of notes today, and I hope to go over the recording again, but if we look at all the issues, the causes and things and how people become depressed, we realize that we're looking at a scale. We're looking at some bandwidth here. And we've looked at the extremes, and it's been great to hear from examples, people dealing with some of the extreme situations themselves or with their families. But I believe that there are also situations where there is what I call a cumulative effect. And therefore, it can be easy for people to miss the fact that they're depressed, or for the practitioners to miss the fact that somebody's depressed. They may not be a high scorer in any one of these metrics, but we've touched on a wide range of issues. So you may—
Your question. We need to round up quickly.
So the question is, to the practitioners, are you considering cases, or how do you assess or diagnose or recognize depression where there is no particular sort of metric on any of these factors, but it's just a cumulative effect of various things: stress at work, family, all the things that we've talked about? I don't know if I'm making sense.
Well, I think Dr. Durojaye actually talked about that using the metrics, and Dr. Fadipe also talked extensively on that. But I could say that when you were talking about prevention of prevention of depression, I think I mentioned lifestyle, going for walks, and doing other stuff which will take your mind off thinking. Maybe you can drop us one comment, talk back on that. Changing lifestyle, we've talked about going for walks, we've talked about exercises. Is there any more that you wish to add?
Okay. Well, one of the things I like to say, you sometimes you don't even have to wait till something happens before you go see a counselor. Yes. You'll be surprised at how much trauma a lot of us are carrying around, just waiting to explode. Now, if you want, Taiwo, if you want I think yours, I think you want, it would be helpful to have a longer chat with you. And so if you want to go through Anne to come to me, I'm happy to talk to you.
Okay, we'll do that
because I
offline.
feel like, there's a lot more in there that, could be useful. They've talked about exercise, getting worse, cultivating good habits. And one of the things that actually a counselor can help you with is also helping you, turn your bad habits into good habits. And those are the things, surround yourself with positive things, surround yourself with positive people. It's like, those are the things you can do to prevent, so you don't even get to that point where you're feeling depressed.
Do you know somebody just posted listening to music? Incidentally, Taiwo Ross is actually a musician. He plays the keyboard, he plays the guitar, he sings. So you can take a couple of those and just enjoy yourself and avoid falling into depression. Do you want to quickly add to that, Dr. Durojaye?
Well, just to say that one of the predisposing, like when you talk about triggers, life events, there's no way you can prevent that. Life always happens. The other thing to just say is that your personality, your temperament too, might predispose you to depression. So the melancholy, those who internalize things a lot, they may tend to get depressed more easily than the sanguine who takes things, lightly. So those are things that probably the counselor will be able to help you with also. To know that life is an event. Most people who get depressed, they are unhappy with themselves, they're unhappy with the situation, and they can't see any hope in the future. So when you surround yourself with positive things, you know that life does happen. Whatever has happened to you, you are not the first person. Life will always happen. It is how you take it or what you do with what happens to you that matters most. So live with a positive mindset.
Yeah. When life throws you lemons, you make lemonade out of it. What's your final word? This is the festive period, and we just want to encourage anybody out there who is going through a depressive state, or and we really want to save a life, even as a result of this discussion here. What's your final word, Dr. Durojaye?
Okay, thank you for inviting me on the panel today. I just want to encourage everyone. Like I said, life happens. And this is one of the things I discuss with my clients. Life happens. But what you do with it is what will determine the outcome.
Thank you.
You can take it and want something out of it. Thank you.
Thank you. Muibat, quickly, your final word on the topic today.
Keep talking about mental health issues. Keep talking about it. Keep sharing your experiences and seek help when it's needed.
Okay, thank you. What about you, Dele Momodu? Final word from a social, from the social aspects of all these parties,
Well, I believe
somebody listening to you and is going through it. You see him every weekend at parties with a Rolex on the wrist, but something is going up there in the head. So what's your final word?
I believe there is no problem bigger than God that God cannot handle for you. And just mind your own business. A lot of the people who are called billionaires today, they are audio billionaires. I know that for a fact. If you talk to bank MDs, bank managers, they know the secret of everybody. Nobody sees your bank account, so they don't know the statement. So stop worrying yourself, because you'll be shocked that the man who is called billionaire today, tomorrow will be a certified pauper. So just do your own thing, maintain your own lane, your own speed, and all shall be well.
Run your own race, indeed. What about you, Sope? Final word.
Final word. Basically, I would like to say, everyone here who has a platform, let us help normalize this whole stigma thing, because when you realize that, like everything else, your headache, your diabetes and stuff like that, it's normal. You cannot control it. You didn't cause it. And just go out there and let people and talk to people, And so, enough of this shrouding it in secrecy and stuff like that. Just talk about it. Let's help each other. Talk to friends, talk to family, talk to professionals. And that's my final one.
Thank you. Please, this is the book written by Pastor Solution, Depression, the Silent Killer. If you wish to get a copy, you can send me a message, or and then I'll put you through to him. However, Pastor Solution, what's your final word on this book you've written, and to encourage somebody else out there?
My final word is this: there is always the possibility of coming from prison to pulpit. Nothing is the end. Like my brother said here, when they throw you, oh, you said it, it's in the book. When they throw a lemon at you, you can turn it into a lemonade. It's not what happens to you that determines your end, but how you react to it. There is always hope.
There is always hope, indeed. And to my resident psychiatrist, Dr. Deomi Ogusheye, final word on the topic, depression.
It's just a word of caution. I always like to end on a happy note and live with hope.
Yes.
However, on this occasion, I just want to correct one mistake we all make all the time.
Mm-hmm.
There is no cause of depression.
Mm-hmm.
People are born with a propensity for depression. Mm-hmm. It's coded in their genes, it's coded in their personality. Mm-hmm. Then when life events come, life events can then tilt them into a depressive episode. So when we start to talk about, oh, what is the cause of it, or what causes it, or what, it almost begins to sound as if we are making a suggestion, we're creating an impression that the individual could have avoided it. Right. One way to avoid it, I'm not talking in terms of COVID now. We are created to relate. So when a person starts to self-isolate, a person does not do the things you know they normally will do, reach out to them. And it's always a good idea to guarantee confidentiality when we deal with people. Confidentiality is key. I'm not going to discuss my life with you if you cannot guarantee me confidentiality. Right. So let's stop the gossiping. Let's respect people's privacies, and let's develop engaging, productive relationships with them. Thank you.
Very much. Thank you. So I would end on speak out and speak up, and let's, some sort of encouragement for people that we suspect are going through stuff. And watch out for the telltale signs, things that they would never really do, especially over this festive period. Just check on someone. Let's make our own little contribution to humanity. My individual social responsibility is this. I spoke with different people, and I thought this would be the final RAM discussion program for the year 2020, which has been very challenging for all of us. And I thank everybody for coming. And just before we go, Muibat, if anybody is interested in volunteering to help with the research, please contact me and I'll put you in touch with her. And don't forget Pastor Solutions book. If you're interested, please let me know. And mind how you go. Be COVID compliant, stick to the guidelines, keep well, stay safe. And before you go, we need to quickly do the poll. So here is the poll. And once you've finished, you can just quickly step off the platform. I'd like to thank everybody, all the members of the panel, Chief Dele Momodu, Mr. Sonny Rabo, Pastor Solution, aka Lawrence Oji. I'd like to thank Muibat Ali. I'd like to thank Councillor Tokwe Abulude, resident psychiatrist, Dr. Deomi Ogusheye, Toyin Magbagbeola, Dr. Abibola Fadipe, and thank you so much, Dr. Oluwagbemiga Durojaye. Thank you all. Wishing you a Merry Christmas and a wonderful New Year 2021. Thank you so much. Please complete the poll and then you can step off the platform. Thank you.